You can find anything on the web.
That's like the perfect bow tie to this right here. Way to wrap it up, Allison. You're a genius.
In the morning, I'm making waffles.
Whoever said orange was the new pink was seriously disturbed.
And when it comes to huge openings, a lot of people think of me.
Just call me a fuck ass.
Brilliant. Scary. I get nasty when I'm horny.
Welcome to Not Another 2001 Movie Podcast, a show exploring movies released during the first year of a chaotic century. Today, we're going to steal some VCRs. I'm Josh.
I'm Allison.
I'm Slate.
So y'all, this is our first episode, our first real episode. I'm so excited to get ready to dive into this year worth of movies. But before we do that, I want to start off with a question. What's the dumbest thing you guys have ever done inside or while driving a motor vehicle?
This is hard because I'm such a goody two-shoes. I've never done anything particularly scandalous, or I don't like text and drive, and But the thing I actually thought of was, so growing up, my family had one of those ginormous Econoline vans with like the back seat like turned into a bed, that we would drive to Myrtle Beach on vacation, as one does. Go to Myrtle Beach, but my dad locked the keys in the car one time. We come out of a restaurant, and this is like the early 90s, so it's like, what are you going to do? And that van had like a sliding window. It went side to side, and it was like maybe this tall, and they managed to get it and get the screen open, and I was just small enough that they like shoved me in through the back. And like, I kind of got stuck like right here at like rib cage level, and I was like screaming, and they're like, "You're almost in, you're almost in." And they just kept pushing and pushing. And I did finally get in, but I was like bruised, like all down the front of my chest and my stomach.
Oh man.
Not really a dumb thing, but that's just the memory that came up of like one of the weirdest things, I guess, inside of a motor vehicle.
Getting stuck will stick with you, I guess.
Yeah. It's traumatic.
Wow. For me, probably the dumbest thing that I could say. So I was about a junior in high school, and every year when it snowed, my buddies and I, all 10 of us, would go play tackle football in the snow, right? And this was like an ice storm blizzard that shut us down for a while, and one of my friends had a Subaru sedan that was probably the size of my Dodge Avenger's trunk. I mean, it was tiny. And there was like 10 of us crammed in that car. And I was laid across the back seat across like 5 laps, like horizontally, trying to get home. And we ended up like spinning out at some point on the road. It was not the smartest idea I ever had, for sure. But you live and learn, right? So.
Picturing it like a clown car, like when you get out, it's just one after the other.
Yes,
it's never going to end.
Yes, I still can't believe we piled that many people in, because we had, the front seat had 2 seats in it, and you had 3 people sitting in the passenger seat of the front, and then a driver, and then you had, I guess it was like 5 or 6 of us in the back. I think there was 2 of us lapped up, like laid across horizontally on top of each other. It was absurd. I've never seen that many people in a car that small ever in my life. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a time I had that many people crammed into a vehicle, and nothing's coming to mind right away. But I know there's been a lot of occasions where, we were in college and you're pounding, 10 or 6, 7 people in the back of because everybody's been drinking, and there's one person who's like been drinking a little less, and that's, just how it went sometimes. I have 2 memories. Slade's really aware of one of the memories, and it wasn't something I was doing, so I'm not going to count it. But
is it Saddle Ridge?
Drinking and driving. Oh yes. Oh, it was terrible.
I knew it.
Oh man, a buddy. I won't name his name. I won't throw him under the bus, but he had no business driving a car. None of us had any business being inside of a car, because we literally lived like 0.2 miles away from Saddle Ridge, and I'm pretty sure we walked to the bar. I don't know why we didn't walk back from the bar, but we were in his vehicle, and I still swear to this day we were on 2 wheels turning onto Red Mile Road.
Oh, it's like Saddle Ridge is where KS Bar is now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yes,
I
Tilted
remember
Kilt.
that.
Yep. Yeah.
It was they used to on Thursday. It was a Thursday night. I know that for sure. I guess Friday morning by the time we were leaving, because it was they would always do on Thursday nights these like $10 to get in, but you got 10 drink tickets, and I mean, so it was like you could get like house beer, house shots or whatever, and it was a fun night, but it almost ended in our demise. It probably should have ended in our demise, honestly.
Didn't they have a mechanical bull?
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did.
I rode that mechanical bull.
I'm pretty sure the
Yeah.
same guy that drove us home and almost killed us was also on that bull earlier that night.
No, he wasn't. Oh man, that's amazing. I'd pay for that video.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The dumbest thing was aware of and actually participating in was, it was equally as stupid. There was no alcohol involved, but we left my high school. We were there's like a state highway pretty close to the high school, or a state road, whatever. And it was like a 4-lane road, but 2 lanes going one way, 2 lanes coming the other way. And my friend, Carrie, she was driving I think it was a Mustang, and she's in one vehicle and a few of our buddies are in that vehicle. I'm driving a beat up Jeep Cherokee. It lasted through college until the fuel pump blew out on Man of War one day. And that was that for that. But terrible. It was a terrible car. I had no business driving it as long as I did, but I'm in that. And a few of my other buddies were in this car. So I had a bunch of Cheez-Its and some cans of Mountain Dew in my car. And Carrie had some I think some Mountain Dew, like there was something similar, cans of pop or bottles of water or something. And we're like flying down this state highway. We're probably going 60, 70 together. I'm trying to keep up with her car. And at some point we just start chucking food items at each other. The passengers were doing this. Me and Carrie weren't doing this, but we're having a shootout with Cheez-Its and Mountain Dew in State Road in Martin County. So it was a miracle that we didn't get wrecked, or that we didn't just interfere with somebody else's driving out there that day. So we were all, seniors in high school, juniors in high school, something like that. So certainly,
Can I ask a follow-up question, since Josh, I know you grew up in Eastern Kentucky as well. Was cruising a thing? We
Yeah.
called it cruising. So like after school, there's nothing to do because you're in the country, and kids would just get in the cars and literally just go back and forth down Main Street and like wave. And my friend John had a 1986 Mercury Cougar that was the biggest piece of shit, and we would go cruising in that just because it was funny. It was like when he bought the car, the guy who sold it to him, he handed him like a pipe or something. He's like, "This comes with the car." And John's like, "What is this?" And he goes, "Well, before you start it, you have to go back behind and get under and beat the gas tank like a few times, and then it'll start." So there's a whole process.
That's my
And
kind of car.
he'd like open the door, and then like the handle and the whole stuff on the set would just like fall to the ground. That car was great.
This Slate got to see this Jeep I'm talking about. He was in it
First thing in my mind was all the stuffed animals, bro.
Yeah, I had all the stuffed animals up in the front, and then hanging out the back, and there was, by the end I had black tape, like electrical tape, taped over the lights because the lights wouldn't go off. So what else was going on? The fuel pump, like I would stop at red lights and it would start jittering, and the fuel injectors couldn't keep up with what was going on, and that's how the fuel pump eventually blew out, because I was driving along Man of War one day, and I knew the moment it happened what happened, and I got it towed it back to our street, and I sold it literally 2 days later on Craigslist for $500 to somebody who collected Jeep parts. So
I'm surprised you got 500
bucks, and it was worth. Yeah, I shouldn't. I robbed that dude. He drove up from Somerset too. He drove like 2 hours, like to come collect this junker.
Jeep people are intense.
But
and he just towed it all the way
Jeeps.
back.
Yeah, I guess so. I think he bought like a trailer or something, and somehow got it up on there. I don't know. I know I didn't help him. I was sitting out there watching it the whole time, thinking, "Just give me my money, bro." It was that Jeep was something else. It was like I had at one time in college for some reason I had two beaters. I had a Jeep and an '01. I don't even remember the make. It was like a van though, and the only thing I could tell you about that because I didn't drive it a whole lot, but one day it was parked in our apartment complex in college, and I had the vehicle for at least a year at this point, and I was looking under the seat. It was something my dad had kind of found for me, and I was looking under the seat and found a handgun. So that was cool. That's to this day the only handgun I've ever owned is it's certainly probably an illegal hidden weapon. So
Serial number definitely
it,
scratched off of it.
yeah, I disposed of that as quickly as I could. So good times. But no Jeeps, no vans in the Fast and the Furious, the movie we're talking about today, but lots of guns. So let's get started, y'all. It's a movie that if you listen to this and you haven't watched it or heard of it, I'd be stunned if you at least haven't heard of it because it's been part of one of the biggest franchises. Not the biggest franchise by monetary value or what have you, but culturally, I think it's maybe after the superhero stuff that's come this century is probably. I mean, it's up there. It's in contention for one of the more influential franchises that we have today. So it started all in 2001 with The Fast and the Furious, directed by Rob Cohen, premiered in the US on June 22nd, 2001, produced and distributed by Universal Pictures, which had a lot of movies come out this year. When I was looking up like kind of the distribution information for this, I was surprised that they had that many movies come out in one year, just because it's one of those things that you don't see a lot today. And it's possible, I haven't done this research for a lot of the other movies yet, but it's something that maybe that was just more normal for a because Universal is obviously one of the bigger companies. It's up there like your Warner Brothers and Paramounts and those places. So it's possible that they all were doing that kind of volume back in the day, but that really stood out to me.
So I got distracted. I was looking at Rob Cohen's filmography.
He's directed some movies. I don't know that you've seen any of them except The Fast and the Furious.
I have seen Triple X and Hurricane Heist.
Okay, Hurricane Heist was the last one. That was like
It was the last
2018 or something,
7 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen Triple X. Definitely did not see Hurricane Heist. Never even heard of it.
It's not good.
I was going to say I think I might have had his in our show notes. I think I might have had some of his highlights written down at some point. That was one of them because it was the last movie he'd done. And I mean, I honestly I couldn't have told you who directed this movie before. Kind of diving in. It's not. I guess it's not too surprising that he followed up with Triple X because it's interesting, right? That Vin Diesel, he didn't come back for the sequel, the first sequel to the Fast and Furious, to do Triple X. So it's kind of like it was sort of a package thing. And then one of the producers involved with this movie, Neil Moritz, who we'll probably talk about a little bit later, because I think he's kind of an important figure in this franchise, or maybe one of the most important. I believe he also was a producer on Triple X. So all those guys, I think, kind of aligned pretty quickly, and at least for a minute, had the same taste and same vibes about them. So it wasn't the highest grossing movie of the year for Universal that year, but it did make a lot of money. It made $207.3 million. I'm not going to get into the specifics on what that 0.3 means or whatever. People, if you want to find that out, you can go look it up. The IMDb's available to all. But on a small budget, that's kind of the cool thing. It was 38 million, which is a lot of money, but in the context of a Hollywood blockbuster is a very small amount of money. Especially, I mean, it was a movie that was made, intently on possibly being a hit, but it wasn't something that had a lot of high expectations either. So that's kind of where the budget comes from. And I think a big part of that budget too is this is a movie. There's not a lot of there's no names, right? Like the cast is Paul Walker, relatively unknown at the time. He worked a little bit. He was in one of Rob Cohen's other movie. I think it's maybe his first movie, Allison. If you have it pulled up there still, it's called Skulls or The Skull.
Yeah.
Paul Walker's in that, I believe. I don't know if he is a big part or anything, but
Isn't he in Varsity Blues. I think that's where I first saw him.
Yes, he is, and I don't. You know, that's funny. I was just talking about or
I
reading
I,
something
I
about
feel
that.
like teen girls would have much more known Paul Walker than
Mm.
you would have. So
Yeah, yeah, and he so that was a couple years. I think that was yeah. So that was 99. I think the Skull was 2000 maybe or 99 as well. And so Paul Walker's, I mean, you could argue a name, not really. He's still fairly, on the come up. He was the first person that was invited to the cast or offered a role in this movie, which makes sense, right? When Rob Cohen and Neil, like these people that all know each other already, they're going to naturally kind of maybe gravitate towards somebody who they think could fit the role. The biggest role, I would say, in the franchise is Dominic Toretto, a Los Angeles racing legend in the film, played by a guy named Vin Diesel, who he was offered the role based on how he portrayed. He'd been seen by Moritz in Pitch Black, which is I've seen Pitch Black. It's like a sci-fi action movie,
mm,
but it's been a long time. I
Amazing
don't
movie.
remember.
I
I don't.
Love
liked.
Pitch Black.
Yeah, I remember really really liking it and really liking Vin Diesel in it. And that was the first time I saw. I don't. He was in like what Boiler Room in the '90s, I think, which I haven't seen. Um, but I was very intrigued by him. I will say I'm not someone who thinks that he's like super hot, and that's not his appeal to me. I just thought he had like a really interesting presence.
Yes, he's very intense, I guess you would say. He has like a demanding presence that just draws your attention to him. He dominates the screen whenever he's on it, even when he's not speaking. Um, Especially at this time, you're just like drawn to him.
Absolutely, yeah, and I mean that's a big part of. I mean they almost we basically make that a central part of his character in the film too, and I think that's a case where it's and maybe it plays into later when he because I think he tries, he really wants to be he wants to be like the Stallone of this generation, or at least that's how I sort of perceive him, and I think the problem is it just doesn't happen for him, or so he gets kind of roped back into this Fast franchise, and it's just that, and of the things you could get roped back into, it worked out plenty for Vin Diesel. He ain't hurting, but I think it's almost like he's just playing himself to some degree, because I would imagine to some degree he's like that in real life, right? Like that kind of commanding personality, that sort of people just kind of naturally just fall in line behind if you're in the same room. The only other person in the cast, there's a lot of people that I'm sure we'll talk about, but as far as the headliners, Michelle Rodriguez is someone I think we have to talk about. Even though she's not, she's in a lot of scenes, but she's of the top billed women. She and Jordana Brewster. Jordana Brewster is actually probably more important, much more important to the movie. She plays Mia, Dom's sister, but Michelle Rodriguez is Dom's longtime friend, lover, crime associate, various things. Her name's Letty in the film, and she's. I mean, I would say she's obviously becomes very important in the franchise, but in this movie, she's mostly just girlfriend, more or less.
Yeah, she doesn't have a lot to do beyond, call women skanks and uh be mad and get in fights with him and
Well,
then
see,
make
and
up
that's
with
the
him. But
thing. If you go back and look at previous interviews or any kind of research, they'll tell you that she originally turned down the role of Letty because she felt like Letty had nothing to do other than just be a love interest, and she wanted a character that was more strong presence, kind of match Dom, strength for strength in that way. And so they pivoted and gave her, more of a powerful role for women, I guess you'd say. But I like her in this movie. I think she's like, uh, you know, impactful in the small scenes that she's in. You kind of know what she's about almost immediately. And then, honestly, the entire franchise, takes a huge turn based off of her character in, the fourth film. So she is a very pivotal part, and this is just kind of laying the groundwork to it.
I do actually find her pretty believable as a woman who would hang out and work on cars and kind of be around, because I think her presence on screen kind of she holds her own against the guys, and there's a lot of actresses that
Yeah,
I
she never
don't think would have
wilts.
fared
That's
as
like
well.
thing. Even I thought even I felt like that you can tell that most of like giving her good lines even is mostly a reaction to that stuff Slate was talking about. But she does. It's all believable. Like it's never like, oh, this is in a way that I think like the sister role is a little less like there's some hints of that. Like she wants to be more like Letty. I think is sort of the undercurrent there, but it's a little harder for at least for me to see the actress pulling that off.
For
But
sure.
we'll get into more of this stuff in a minute. Some other background information about the Fast and the Furious. It was written by Gary Scott Thompson, who received a story by credit also, which is notable. I don't know if you guys really know what that means. Story by, because I didn't. I mean, until when I started writing. Honestly, when I started writing my book, I didn't know what it meant because it's basically story by is almost like the first writing credit. It's like basically who comes up with the idea, and you can still get a writing credit too, and it's different because basically it's in terms of how you get paid, royalties and whatnot. But the written by credit often can mean less than the story by credit in terms of like what you actually contributed to the script. From all intents and purposes, there's two other credited writers, Eric Bergquist and David Ayer. All of my research, it seems like really David Ayer wrote this movie for most of in terms of what we're talking about. He's done a lot of action films since then. He including one that we will talk about later this year, a little movie called Training Day that I think this pairing puts him in contention already out of the gate for a possible MVP of the 2001. But it's interesting that and this was one of his earlier flicks. It was like it's something that he started on early. So I mean, this guy was churning out pretty good stuff right from the jump. And he added a lot of like the Los Angeles flavor. It really became in the diversity. Like that's something with the cast. I mean, it's clear like they just a lot of natural diversity in the cast. But he's the one that really drove in a lot of the elements that made it different. Because the original script it was set in New York. It was more like an Italian like gang movie to some degree. So it changed quite a bit once Ayer got his hands on it. I think.
Yes, the true story of Dominic Toretto and his family.
Oh, that's
Right,
right.
Josh?
What? Remind everyone, Josh,
Yeah,
where you
tell everybody
drafted
what category this movie falls under for you, sir.
Oh, this is an absolute classic story rooted in real life. It was drafted so in our movie draft that sort of set us on the path here. It was drafted in the That Really Happened category because this really happened, y'all. It is based on an article that was widely publicized as part of the marketing for the movie called Racer X. That's the title of the article, written by Ken Lee for Vibe magazine in 1998. So that article, if you go back and sort of how the script developed, actually the movie was really closely. It could have been really, really based on the article. Again, it was set in New York originally. It was a lot Italian, kind of more Italian street gangs, which isn't really. I mean, the guy that's at the center of the article is a Dominican man. I don't know. I'm not clear on Vin Diesel's ethnicity myself, so I don't. But I get Hispanic kind of vibes. That's at least or Hispanic adjacent. I don't really know. Honestly, I don't really. He's hard to pin down.
He looks Hispanic / Italian. It's a little, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean Toretto. I mean, is an Italian name. Like it kind of gets like I think this would have been something good for me to look up before we start talking about this instead of sounding like a jackass here. But
Okay. Oh my God. I was just on Wikipedia. I don't know how I didn't know this. His real name is Mark Sinclair Vincent.
Yeah,
I would have changed my name to Vin Diesel too.
all about the marketing, man. All about the marketing. No way he gets this role if his name was not Vin Diesel.
It says that he tells people he's of ambiguous ethnicity. His mother
So
his
perfect.
mother has
I'm
Scottish
no longer a
roots. He's
jackass.
never met his biological father.
All right.
Okay.
He's everything we want him to be.
Obviously, it was a controversial choice, though that really happened. But I'm still comfortable with it. I think I stretched the limits of the category, but I don't think I broke them.
Let's just say this. Josh made up all the categories and then was the one who bent the
He
rules
had
on
such
every
specific
single
rules for all
category.
the categories.
Yes. Like we
Every
got
single category. Maybe
I mean,
two.
we got a manifesto
Google
of
document.
30 pages
Yep.
of rules for this draft.
I had to have him call me and explain how it worked.
And-
I was like, I can't read all this.
Just chuck them out the window.
We really did. I forgot about
It's like
that.
a-
I
it's
also
like
we
an
had
hour.
a 30-minute phone conversation. And actually, me and Slate did,
Yeah, I was
too,
going to say, we had multiple conversations about every different category and thought process and everything else. And ultimately, I blame myself for taking Atlantis first. If I had, if I had just maybe taken this or Training Day, this would have never happened. So it's my fault. I'm sorry, America.
I'm not. I'm so glad Slate took Atlantis first. So, this was Rob Cohen's 8th feature film. I think we mentioned already, he and Vin Diesel teamed up later for Triple X just the next year. And he's directed a few other movies since then. His last was The Hurricane Heist, previously talked about on this podcast as a classic feature that you should check out on insert streaming service on which it is available. Where is it? I assume it's a streaming movie. I don't know.
No, it was one that came up. So my mom loves like movies about tornadoes or weird or sharks or weird natural disasters, and that like came up in her list. We didn't watch it, but then I was like, oh, I might go back and watch that later because it had like it's not like trash. She watches a lot of trash, like a lot of sci-fi based movies. But that was
So
like,
your
this
mom's
has, like,
a big Sharknado fan is what you're telling us?
Yes. So for Thanksgiving a couple of years ago, we always like pick a movie to watch, and she had never seen The Meg, and I'm like, Mom,
Oh.
you're gonna love The Meg.
That's
and
fun.
it wasn't streaming anywhere. We couldn't find it. We ended up buying it, like the digital version for like $20. And I was like, okay, every Thanksgiving we have to watch The Meg because you spent $20 on it for this viewing.
That's
So we started
amazing.
calling it Meg's Giving.
I love it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Did you recommend Hurricane Heist to your mom after watching it?
I did not.
Oh.
Oof.
I don't know. She would probably like it though. Her standards are lower than mine.
Well, I would say poor Rob Cohen, except that in 2019 and 2021, he was accused of various sexual misconduct, sexually assault, various things. As far as I can tell, none of that stuff's ever been litigated, so I'm not going to sit here and say that he was guilty or not. But enough allegations out there and enough work not being done by a man who could still probably be working that makes me think he's probably a stay away guy at this point. One of those allegations was from Asia Argento, who was in Triple X. She's an actress. I've never seen Triple X. I imagine she's a fairly prominent character in that, only because I'm familiar. Like she's a daughter of, is it Dario Argento? I think that's his name. God, I had it in my head until I just started to say it. Yeah, he's a prominent director from that. From Italy. I was going to say from Italian, from Italy, the place that
Italian descent.
Yeah. I saw Triple X when it came out, and I remember like liking it fine. Like it's a big dumb action movie, but I don't remember anything about it except he's like snowboarding down a mountain or something at one point. I think. But
Yeah. Don't forget all the dirt bike tricks. Don't forget the dirt bike tricks.
I just remember
but
the
it's-
poster. Like that's the only thing
Yeah.
I remember about Triple X is.
But it's honestly a shame that these things happened. Obviously, not for the obvious reasons, but also when you go back and watch this movie, I think he was ahead of his time as a director in some of these. The way he shot this film, the action sequences, I think, are shot not only practically but really well. Like they're, for the budget that he had, very intense sequences. I love the way he puts you in the car with the drivers when they're all you see is streaks going by, and then you see the other cars coming through and passing. And this, what I love about this film is this film in the franchise has not only one the most like grounded in reality, set pieces and storylines to it. And each film as they go along get bigger and more, obnoxious with, taking cars to space and everything else. But this film, like the feeling that this film gives you while you're riding along with these characters, doing these action sequences and everything else, is just something that like has never been duplicated in the rest of these movies. I don't feel like.
I think that final scene where they're trying to take down the truck and the driver's got his shotgun and is shooting back. That is just, I think that whole sequence is fantastic.
Yes.
And you can tell they're really on a highway, and that's a stunt man really on the truck, and there's not any fake CGI bullshit there. It's all happening, and there's really people driving, and it's just a lot of this movie. I would kind of like get bored and like look away, but like I was completely captivated all there at the end.
Yeah, and the guy that plays Vic is a stuntman.
Did not know that.
Like that's
Makes sense.
yeah, that's how he ended up. That's how he ended up with that role. Yeah.
And it all, I mean, that's that level of practicality. I mean, obviously, it gets really crazy. Some of the stuff they do later in the franchise, so it gets sort of you have to use more digital effects just based on some of the stuff that they end up driving towards, pun intended. But it still retains a lot of that practical element throughout, which is something increasingly I just respect more and more, that you have people out there doing stuff like that, because it's I just find digital stuff just ages worse. All of it.
I was supposed to say it just looks good. It still looks good 25 years later.
Yeah, yeah. And like Slade said, that's a credit to Cohen. Is even if he is a monster, and something on that subject. There's a bonus feature on the DVD, at least on the original DVD. It's probably still carried on in future releases, where they set up that the final scene as a a train, like the two cars going trying to beat a train track, a very subtle thing. And there are like, as a special feature of like 8 or 9 cameras that were set up to capture that last thing that happens in the movie. And it's just so cool. I was like, they're like watching that scene from different angles that end up getting cut together into the final sequence. And like one of the cameras just gets destroyed completely, like, and you can see it in the movie because the car starts coming towards it, and then it kind of cuts to another angle. But in the special feature, you can see it like wipe out the camera, like, which is just so cool. Like, and that's the kind of thing that you have a good eye as a director, because Cohen, it mentions in the DVD, like he was the one that made sure all of those, like he worked with second unit action to make sure that all those cameras were in the right place, and that kind of be able to, so he in the edit could work on that. It's just really cool, and it's unfortunate that that's becoming less and less popular in movie making. Before we start talking about just the film in general, just some final background. It's at the time of this recording, it has the Fast and Furious has a 74% user rating and a 55% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 6.8 rating from users on IMDb. I don't think there's anything about those numbers that surprises me necessarily. It's sort of a classic movie that it's either you love it as a critic or you hate it. I don't think there's much room for in between, and I think it's a favorable audience scores, both of those that kind of track with how people, I think, in contemporary times and today, probably perceive this movie in large part.
Nice car. What's the retail on one of those?
More than you can afford, pal. Ferrari.
Smoke 'em.
All right, guys. So, did you like the Fast and the Furious, or did you already like it, and did you like it more now? How do we feel about this movie?
I mean, I liked it. I remembered, liking it when it came out, but I've only seen the first 2 of these movies, by the way. Like, and I know the other ones, the later ones, get really good. It's just, it's gotten so overwhelming that I haven't just like committed to sit down and like get completely caught up. But I think it holds up pretty well, honestly. So I had to watch it in pieces because, as I was telling Josh and Slate earlier today, I've watched so many movies in like the past 3 or 4 days that I was like, I was just got to get through this movie because we are recording this tonight. So I was watching it in like 20 to 30 minute chunks over the past few days. But no, I still enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it still held up.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I can go back to remember, the first time I watched this at my house, with my family and just really loving it. So the nostalgia definitely hits me. But it's funny that you mentioned, like, as a critic, you either love it or hate it. And I kind of see this film in two different ways, like as a fan of just action movies and as a fan of, like, the franchise and stuff. I love this film. And I think it's a great popcorn movie, fun movie to just be a part of. But also, like, as a critic, there's so many issues that I have with this film that, like, for one, can we just talk about it as a completely blatant ripoff of Point Break? It is Point Break with cars, okay? So, like, there's no originality to the script at all. Like, they just traded their surfboards.
The people that make this movie basically say that. I mean, that's kind of, and I think that's something that you sort of just don't care about if you spawn a franchise that's made billions of dollars. You just kind of say, yeah, that's what we did. But it's interesting to think about this movie in terms of, like, if it hadn't been, like, if it had kind of flopped at the box office, it would have been a one and done thing. It's interesting to think, like, how would we perceive that? Like, how would that part of it age in terms of what it is? 'Cause I think we all, that's easy to see, and also something that, like, you're like, oh yeah, whatever, you just brush it off, yeah, they ripped off Point Break, whatever. I think it's a little, it ages differently, right, if the franchise doesn't take off. And honestly, I think a lot of this movie, like, I think a lot of action movies, it really does hinge on the cast. Like, I think it's a very likable group of people, a good ensemble that you just kind of want to root for collectively.
I think
even the supporting cast, like, with Ted Levine, and you've got some what you would call that guys in this movie as well. Like the kid that plays Jesse. Every time you see him in other films, you're like, holy shit, that's Jesse. And Ja Rule being in the film is probably the most 2001 thing about it.
His song at the end, in the end credits. I think the diversity, which you all mentioned earlier, is a big selling point of this movie. I mean, Point Break, not so much. Unless you count, was Keanu's what, like...
It was the 90s, Allison.
I know,
but no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a huge... that is a huge differentiator, and I think I can only think, like, when Ayer was touching up the script, that was something that was in the back of his mind in terms of making it different.
I can't remember where I heard or read this. I feel like Josh now. I'm just gonna spout some bullshit that I can't, attribute to anything. But I feel like I'm also a writer, and I feel like at some point, I had learned or read that there are no truly new stories out there. Like, everything can be boiled down into, like, a kind of plot, but it's about the way you tell the story is what makes it unique and original. And so that's when people are. I mean, Avatar is a ripoff of Pocahontas or Ferngully, or I mean, you could name any other movie that has, like, such a Dances with Wolves, or some very, very similar plot. But Avatar was okay for me, but it apparently worked for a lot of people, because of the way James Cameron told that story, which is impressive. But
because that familiarity does breed comfort for people, and I think it's probably some part of this film's success is probably due to it being basically Point Break, just told differently, and because that was a movie people enjoyed, and had by that time it was 10 years old. I think it came out in 91, 92, so had been about a decade since that film, and it's just something that I think just lends it, and just the material. I mean, it's cars. Everybody drives, even if you're not drag racing. It's something that everybody at some point in their life, when they're young or when they're middle aged and trying to avoid, being responsible for a minute. They get behind the wheel and do something stupid and go a little faster than they should, or feel like they want to, even if fast for them is 70 miles an hour. It's something that part of it is uniquely relatable in a way that I don't think a Point Break is, because I think the surfing, that's a different kind of escapism, but it's not something that everybody can access. You have to be on a beach. You have to have some degree of athleticism too. It's hard to be an unathletic person and get on a surfboard without really embarrassing yourself. So, and if you want to, anybody can enjoy driving fast, and we see that in the cast, in the diversity of the cast, the main cast, but also like all the bit players. I mean, Hector, he's like an overweight Hispanic guy. Like you have women, like tons of different women out there doing things and different. It's something that everybody can access. You just have to have the passion for vehicles and mechanicry and just the wits about you to kind of outsmart people when you're out there on the road.
And Slate, just to tack onto you about a critical thing that I'll bring up is I think some of the editing it's not super great. It's like when they, in that first scene, which by the way, Josh, they're not stealing VCRs. They're stealing TV VCR combos, which even more firmly plants it in the time.
There's DVD players too, right?
Yeah,
like,
the cop says something about DVD players.
Yeah, they end up getting, I think they said up to like $6 million in theft, which makes it a huge federal case at that time. But yeah, I guess it is definitely.
There's a couple of times when like it cuts. It feels like there's scenes missing. I guess like when they first steal that truck and then they break through the construction and just drive off, and I'm like, okay, well, what do they do with it now? When Brian's driving with Jordana that first time, and then suddenly it cuts away, and then he's in bed, and I'm like, wait, and then at the end, when they go to do that final heist, they go to get the cars, and it's night, and they go to that truck, and it's in the middle of the day, and I was like, did it take them 8 hours to drive there? Like, there's just stuff like that was kind of jarring to me.
I thought that was an interesting choice for the final, like you start the film with a night scene for them to do the big heist, and then the end of the film is a daytime scene for them to do the heist. And I'm curious why that decision was made and how that happened. But also while we're on that, like we're talking about the editing and the kind of the plot holes, the things that I had that bothered me as a critic about this movie that I don't think you notice until you've watched it over and over again. First of all, when Dom gets picked up by Paul Walker's character, how the hell does Johnny Tran know that Dominic Toretto is in a green car that's not his?
that he's never seen before tonight.
Yeah,
like right, like
just,
it's like the
him and his whole gang just roll up on Paul Walker's car and they know that Vin Diesel's in it. Like, okay.
I think on that point, I think there's a bit of like it's a real quick bit of dialogue, like you're on our block or something. But
yeah,
I guess they're just looking maybe for those import
street
vehicles.
racer car that's not theirs. But the other one that I think is a lot less defensible goes back to Jordana Brewster, right? So she's when Paul Walker pulls up to the party with Dom, she sees them and she says, "Oh shit!" drops her hair and like gets all dolled up, sort of tries to get cutie for Paul Walker. Then she tells him, "You need a shower and some sleep. Let's go to my place." But then we're supposed to believe that she doesn't date her brother's friends and they haven't had sex until she's back at Harry's while he gets the phone call in the middle of the night. Wild.
Her character is very, I won't say poorly conceived, because I like what they're attempting to do. I mean, she's just the bait, right, for Brian to come in and she's the vessel through which he starts to want to become part of this family instead of the FBI. But yeah, man, she's it's hard to watch this and like it's just uneven. Like it's almost like scenes in the movie should happen at different times with her anytime she's involved until the end where it kind of all starts coming together. But I think in terms of the heist, you guys were both brought up the heist scenes, and I do think the final heist scene is the one that I think it's the highlight of the movie.
Absolutely.
And in terms of the action, but I think it's interesting. Like it starts at night, right? I think it's a pretty, to me, a fairly cut and dry thing. It's not because it's the first thing happening, and you're concealed, right? We don't know who the hijackers are, and then by the end, we all like you can. It's a lot of Brian just in denial the whole time. It's not hard to see it coming together that Vin and his crew are the guys behind the hijackings that are driving the plot of this movie in the background. But, it's all out in the open at the end. So the fact that it's at daytime and they're not wearing their gear anymore either, that's interesting, right? Because you would think they would have showed up with their gear on, and
yeah.
it does like it is like it's weird that they're not in their gear, but also like as the film, just the framing and the mise en scène of it all, I like it because it's like, okay, they're just out in the open. We're just revealing like, yeah, these people are just out in the open, ready to tangle.
Yeah, I think two things. Like, I think part of the reason behind that is it's their last job. Dom says we're all going on a long vacation. I think they know the heat is on them at this point, and so they really don't care. But also, I feel like they got caught off guard. Like, they're at Race Wars, they're trying to do this, which could have been a great alibi for them as well. But like, maybe they weren't fully prepped, and then of course, the whole Jesse thing happens, and then they kind of lose their wits about them and stuff. But Dom also tells Brian, hey, we'll see how you do at Race Wars, then we'll talk. So he's thinking about cutting him in, but he never cut him in for Jesse, even though Jesse was missing, and they go shorthanded. So I don't know. Obviously there's plot holes there, but I mean, all in all, like, still a very fun, enjoyable movie, and it good discussions.
Yeah. So we've hit a lot of the plot high points, but just in terms of how things unfold, is there anything you guys kind of responded to throughout, or that really you really enjoyed?
So one of the things that made me laugh really hard is when Dom's running, and he pulls into that, I guess it's like a parking garage or something. He like quickly comes in, and the cops don't see him, and he parks it, but then he just walks down the street next to the cops. He's like putting his jacket on. He's the only one. Like he might as well just be like whistling and like giving side eye as he's doing it. The cop immediately sees him. I was like, that was so dumb.
Yeah, just stay in the alleyway, bro.
Yeah.
And I love that he's such a character, right? He's like framed as this guy who's like totally in control. He knows he's very measured. He understands every situation that he's going to be presented with. And yeah, he's like just that nonchalant in a situation like that too. Like it's such an interesting way that he's portrayed a lot through this. Because I think some of the stuff that happens at the end is sort of reflective of that too. Like he's been in control this whole time, and now he's like, fuck it. Let's just go out here in our street clothes and start wreaking havoc.
Yeah, he's put off as this calculated, disciplined guy, and then kind of throws it all to the wind at the very end, and just like, all right, let's whatever. But for me, going back to kind of what stood out most to me and what I liked about it, that upon rewatching for the millionth time, not only just like I said, the action sequences feeling more practical, not CGI, like that's real people doing real stunts. The car stunts are amazing. You've got the Honda going under the semi trailer, and all of that is just like, holy shit, like people really did this. Like that is some skill, but other than that is also the humor that like you catch in this movie. Like for instance, when Brian's kicking Vince's ass and he's like, what'd you put in that sandwich? Or, nobody likes the tuna here, asshole. Like stuff like that. Just kind of stand out. Like, it's got its funny moments into it. Then that kind of gives you that warmth and love, I guess. I don't know.
Were you all, do you remember if you were surprised that Brian was a cop? Since they go to, I think, pretty great lengths to make that kind of a big reveal, especially, when I'd forgotten that the cops like pull him over and arrest him in public to like then take him back to the headquarters.
I was surprised. So I watched this movie before I draft. I watched it once to, make sure that my memories of it were good and that I wanted to have it high on my draft board. And I watched it twice this week. And the first time, so rewatching it ahead of the draft, I was surprised because it'd been so long since I watched the movie that I just didn't remember how it all played out. Like I knew what Brian was and would become, but it just hadn't clicked in my head that, oh yeah, he starts out as a cop and then sort of it evolves into this vigilante type guy. And then so the second time and the third time I was watching it leading up to this episode, I was trying to look and like just try to read into and catch as many is there tips at all. And he does, like, there's little subtle things like kind of how he reacts to a couple situations, in terms of his identity, the opening scene or the second scene where he's fighting Vince and then he's looking at his license plate or his driver's license. I like that too from Vin Diesel. He's like, that sounds like a serial killer name. Are you a serial killer? Just some really stupid lines like that are just awesome that wouldn't be good if they weren't delivered by Vin Diesel in this movie. Like
Brian Earl Spillner. Sounds like a serial killer name. Oh man. And
I think that's like that's probably the first scene, like, even though he's not like accusing him of being a cop, he's like questioning who he is, and that's sort of your first maybe tip that this guy might be a little different than what he's portraying. But I think it's really well done. If you haven't watched this movie, sorry for the spoilers, you had 25 years, bro.
25 years, get over it.
But I think even if you've, like me, like gone a long time without rewatching it, it's kind of like, oh, like this is really pretty well done in terms of how they try to. It's like 30 minutes into the movie, almost 40 minutes into the movie before they actually do tell you this guy's a cop.
Well, sort of. Like, see, it's funny. I remember like watching it as a kid, and like when he like tells me that he's a cop, I'm like, oh shit, he's really a cop. Like, which is weird because like you kind of already, like, obviously it took forever for me to get it, and then like now when I watch it, which I have it on in the background, I've just got it on silent, just kind of but now when I watch it, like, it's pretty obvious, like the whole time with the conversations, if you start paying more detail into it, when the lead detective is telling him like, you better be looking for another job and all that stuff. And because like he's got this background that says he was boosting cars and spent a couple of years in juvie, and it's like, okay, is that real and they put him into a program, or is that a backstory for him? And the more that I look at it, the more I think that is kind of real and they put him into a program, because like he's so excited to drive that car at the beginning of the movie and top it out and all of that stuff. Like, he has that in him. And so I wonder if he was like, a bad kid that they tried to mold into an undercover cop or something.
He's also not very subtle, I think.
No.
Which when I was young, I don't think I know. But like, watching it this time, he's just like, so what's going on around here? Stuff? Anything going on? It's just like,
well, that's a good.
He's like the worst detective.
Yeah,
that's also a good place to point out that Paul Walker might be the worst. It has an argument to be as the worst actor in this movie, which is. I mean, some of his line deliveries are pretty rough, and I also love, like, there's also a running a bit to the point that I think I'm unclear if it's part of his character or if it's just Paul Walker kind of stumbling through things and they just left it in the movie, where he like repeats himself a lot in this movie. It's pretty like noticeable once you start rewatching it. It's like almost every other scene he's in, he's repeating himself, like repeating bits of dialogue, and it's like. It's just interesting. It's like, you don't see that a lot in movies, even in movies where like a character is constantly questioning themselves, which I think Brian is in this movie. Like, he's from the jump, like, Slate brought up that initial scene where he's driving, trying to top out his car. He's being pulled in different directions the entire movie. And obviously, I mean, I don't think it's very uneven-handed which direction he really feels like it, where his heart is the whole movie. But it is interesting that's an interesting kind of assessment there, Slade, about like, is he a kid that's like just been in a program that he's just trying to kind of work towards getting out of, getting his record forgiven or something. I think that's an interesting way to read it, because that makes a lot of the stuff make a lot more sense in general.
I'd also wondered if that if him boosting cars was fake information put out there, or if that was true. But I think you're right. I think his reaction to actually getting to drive is probably leaning towards that. That's really true.
Yeah,
I also
that's
like
kinda
how
what I felt.
it's so 2001, because Vin Diesel's like, you can find anything on the web.
They have these new things, Brian, called computers.
Yeah.
He's got one hooked up to his car, and at first he's like tapping on the keys while he's driving. I'm like, what is that doing?
Speaking of computers, I can't wait to talk about the computer scene in the next week's podcast. But also, yeah, let's also go to the Asian driving the PlayStation video game in his car.
He's playing Gran Turismo.
Yes.
And he's wrecking it, like just running his car up a wall. But going back to the previous conversation about like the big reveal of him being a cop, I don't necessarily feel like the big reveal, and when I rewatched it now, I don't necessarily feel like the big reveal is that finding out, is he a cop or isn't he a cop? It's more of finding out, are they going to find out that he's a cop and how? And I was so let down at him just looking at Mia going, I'm a cop. Mia, I'm a cop. And she's like, huh? No, I'm really a cop. Like,
Yeah. That was a particularly rough line of delivery. Yeah.
I mean, you could have found
like-
out some other way. That was so bad.
She's like, fuck you, Brian. Okay, I'll help you.
Yeah, you son of a bitch. Okay, let's go. Get in the car.
Oh, so my question related to the cop question that I still was asking myself this last time I rewatched it. Literally, I finished it like 2 hours ago before we started recording. Do you think Dom knows he's a cop the entire movie? Because he's obviously visibly surprised at the moment that he vocalizes it to a point where he does find out. But there's a part of me that watches this movie and wonders if he knows, if not from the scene where he's talking about the finding everything out on the web, but even maybe before then. I kind of wonder.
Maybe it's like the inverse of Brian, because, you know, they keep telling Brian, like, you know, Toretto's the one, he's pulling these heists, and he just doesn't want to believe it, right? So, like, he's blaming, you know, Johnny Tran and his gang, and he's just kind of refusing to believe it because he's gotten so attached to him. And maybe it's the inverse, where Dom was suspicious of him, and then he kind of gets attached to him, and he just chooses to, like, you know, not to believe it. And then at the end, it's kind of shocking when he was like, well, I let my guard down.
We're on that same wavelength. That's sort of where I was going with it. It's a interesting mirror that I whether it was intentional or not, I think it happened. It plays out pretty well that way.
Yeah, for me, I think that at the beginning, I think he definitely has his reservations towards him about possibly being a cop, and obviously, you know, when he's looking for the engines in Hector's cars and all of that stuff, I think that's like a big red flag. Number one, you don't do that as a racer, and he should know better, right?
Yeah.
And then number two, like, that is very cop material.
Well, and can we talk about that scene for a minute, because
yeah,
that's another instance of like Brian is just a dope who has like literally he's asking like what his plan was. He's like he says, I have a plan or something, and then he's like, oh, my plan. Like he's literally thinking in real time out loud.
Well, I owe you a 10-second car, remember? So, you know.
This is about race wars.
Race wars, right.
Also, Race Wars, they could not have come up with a better name for that event than Race Wars.
That was the name of the movie at some point.
Oh,
Could
God.
you imagine Race Wars 10
that wouldn't have worked.
coming out in the year 2020? That, yeah, the name of the movie, I have a clip to share with the audience that I really enjoyed. I found leading up to this about essentially Neil Moritz, the producer on this movie and involved in the entire franchise. He was struggling with the name and just saw a documentary about old Roger Corman movies, and one of those movies is like released in 55, 56, is called The Fast and the Furious, and he was like, that's it, that's what the name of this movie should be. So he licensed, like he worked up with Roger Corman, the famous, infamous B movie director, and he licensed the title from an existing movie to use for this movie, and the rest is history.
I think that was a good choice.
Absolutely.
Race Wars.
But yeah, going
car go fast.
Going back to
The
Dom.
movie.
Oh shit. Going back to Dom with Brian, for me, I think that he has his reservations about him, and then I think Brian kind of proves his merit along the way, and he's like, this guy's too loyal to be a cop. Like, and I think that possibly Race Wars would have been like where he kind of tests his loyalty, and it didn't necessarily come through that way. I am interested to see, like, I think that had like the shit with Jesse had not gone down and they didn't have like get rushed to go get that last big truck with Johnny Tran, accusing Dom of narking on him, and you get like one of the best lines ever. I never narked on nobody. When that happens, I think that like if they stay at Race Wars and things like nothing crazy happens, I think the gears start turning in his head is that, okay,
that becomes the trigger point
becomes how he finds out that Brian is a cop.
Mm-hmm.
Which would have been interesting too. Obviously, you don't have enough time for all that to happen, and this whole thing happens. And but I do think that the reveal to Dom when he's like calling the stat flight helicopter, giving his badge number, and Dom figures out like, holy shit, he's a cop, is a great job by Vin Diesel. It's probably the best acting he does in the whole movie when he finds out in just his face. He doesn't have to say anything. You can just see the disappointment, the distrust, the like everything.
Well, and there's a in that scene, there's a shot in that scene. It's like a maybe a second and a half, 2 seconds long of Vin Diesel. Like the way that they're framed, that Vin just, it looks like Vin Diesel's getting ready to eat him. Like he's it's like that kind of, and it's like filled with that disappointment. It's like, it's like you're ready to just destroy this guy, but he knows he can't either in that moment.
He's also holding back because Brian's getting help for his friend too. So it's like, well, I can't kill this guy now. He's on the phone with 911, who's bringing a helicopter to take my friend to get care.
Right. It's the ultimate betrayal because he feels like he's been betrayed by somebody that he seemed as a loyal friend at that time then. And it's part of the reason why he never invites new people into his family at this point. Like, he's very closed off, and he let a new guy come in, and then that happens. And not only that, but that dude's also dating his sister, which, is another, thing. And then Vince got shot, and Vince is the one that the whole time's been saying, like, don't trust him. He's a cop. Yada, yada, yada. And, and then like he can't even stay to make sure that Vince is okay, because if he does, he's going to get arrested and go to jail. And so it's all those things like going through his head at the same time and ultimately they're like, yo, we got to go. So, but I thought it was interesting that when Brian shows up to stop him and he's getting in the car with the shotgun and he tells him to stop running, like Vin Diesel could have, well, all right, not Vin Diesel, but Dominic could have easily shot or attacked Brian, and that friendship bond is still there. He's like, I'm not running. I've got to get to Jesse before they do. Like, hey, like, I know you're a cop, but like, we can't let this happen. And so like that whole sequence right there was interesting because, a traditional action sequence or, felon, all of that stuff would think kill the cop and go, but they still have this bond that's unbreakable.
Okay, can we talk about Jesse for a second? Because like I laughed out loud when he like Looney Tuned, just gonna keep driving this car, and you just see him like taking up, and they're just like, where's he going?
Yeah, he's going to the car wash.
And he's going to the car wash. And then he shows up right at the end. Of course, perfect timing. They're like, we gotta go find him, and it's like, and he pulls in. But he gets shot, and we don't see him again. Did he?
He's
die?
Dead.
He's dead.
They sit on his body for a second, but it's very. I mean, or somebody's looking after. I think it's Dominic.
It's the sister.
Mia. Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't remember it. Yeah.
Her last scene is her back's turned to us, and she's not doing anything. That's probably the best use of her character.
I mean, he really thought going up against Johnny Tran, like, come on, bro, pink slips too. And that's like one of those things where, like, if he'd have just said, "Hey, I'm going to race Johnny Tran," Dom would have been like, "No, you embarrassed me," and he didn't stop him.
I love that so much of that scene, the diner scene at the beginning is like
it's amazing. It's so good.
That's the only scene you watched in this movie. you would know everything you need to know about Dominic Toretto.
Yeah.
I mean, it's perfect. It's like the perfect character introduction.
Yeah, he was in my face. I'm in your face. You work for Harry? Not anymore. You were just fired. You know, that whole sequence is amazing.
It's I mean, it's great. I mean, it's obviously he's become one of the most lived in characters in movie history at this point, and I think, but so much of it is formed there right from the jump. I mean, it's pretty incredible to have a character, because I mean, this movie, there's no way this movie is good if that character isn't good. I mean, that's the reality of the Fast and Furious. This original movie is, it is not. It is a terrible movie if Dominic Toretto is a terrible character.
100%.
Yeah, Dominic Toretto and Paul Walker's blue eyes are selling this movie.
Allison saw some different things in Paul Walker than I did.
It's in Paul Newman is really before my time, but I'm someone who can appreciate, multimedia and culture before I was born, and it's like he's got like those Paul Newman like piercing blue eyes.
I feel like they're enhanced in this movie. I don't feel like they're like that blue in other films. They're blue, but like they're really blue in this movie.
Okay, another thing, I don't remember how I felt about Johnny Tran's gang in 2001, but I just have a hard time taking them that seriously when they're on those like little dirt bikes, basically. Have you all watched The Righteous Gemstones?
Yes, I love The Righteous Gemstones.
That first season, the motorcycle
Yeah.
gang, which his sons,
Yeah.
like, I just kept like thinking of that, and they were just and like that scene where they find Dom in Brian's green car, which you point out like how did he know he was there? And then they all drive off, but then they come back and shoot it. And for some reason, that just made me laugh so hard. You just hear the like ring of the bikes, and then everything gets shot up and the car explodes.
And that's their MO. Like they drive past you and then they drive back and shoot you, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But they're just not very intimidating, I guess.
Don't forget about the snakeskin leather pants.
Our boy Reggie Lee, what's the cut? Lance? Is that the
Yeah,
the
it's
cousin's
Lance.
name?
Yep.
It's that. I mean, it's just an interesting. I love that they name those two, and then there's a gang, and then it sort of just devolves by the end. It's just those two. Like, what happened to
Yeah.
the gang?
Where's the rest of them? I think Lance really only has like one line when Johnny Tran's like, "What are you thinking? 40 weight, 50 weight?" 40 weight sounds
good.
nice. That's like the only thing he says the whole movie.
Those pants say a lot, though.
Yes, they do.
It takes a lot of courage to kill people in those pants. In the dead of night, in the dead of daylight. I mean, they've gone down this place is rough. Like, this part of LA is rough that they're in. I mean, there's like guys just shooting people in the middle of the day on the side of the street and then getting chased through city streets and
That's
shot.
another thing. I love a good chase scene where they cut to like kind of the crest of a hill, and then you just see like, well, it's the bikes for, and then the car just like sailing because they're going so fast that they catch air. I'm a sucker for that in a car chase scene. But then I also laughed when Dom comes back. He takes the shortcut and then just like bumps what's his name like down the hill off his bike, and he just rolls around and he's groaning, and Dom's like, all right,
Job done. Job's done.
Job done. Yeah.
You just killed my friend. I just knocked you off your bike. It's all good.
Yeah.
We're even. We're even.
Like Looney Tune moments is just the fact that happens, and then that he gets out of the car to go look like he's in the middle of trying
And he
to.
gives this
chase-
note. He's just like, yeah.
his look of approval
Yeah.
before he continues his vendetta. There's so many good scenes in this movie. Again, all of it works because of Vin Diesel. I love the scene after Brian saves Dom from the cops and they go back to Dom's house. I know we were joking on Mia Jordana Brewster earlier in that scene because it's just the inconsistency there, but that scene is funny, and so I love Dom's just. It's interesting because I bring up the cop thing, like, does he know Brian's a cop? Because I think he's if you read it that way, it's also like it makes that scene to me a little more interesting because it's like he would obviously be conflicted about inviting someone who's a cop into his gang, but he respects the fact that this guy did this regardless of what he is for him. And he just goes into his house, like, you know, I assume it's Dom's house, his sister's up there upstairs, and he just starts tearing into all his buddies who abandoned him,
takes away their beer.
It takes away their beer, and then but it's also like this. It's a great window into just what these people are, because he's giving them hell for leaving him behind, and then he's just kicking back with them. You know, it's a very natural, like that's kind of how it goes with
Because
buddies
Letty's like on the floor watching TV like a kid, like on her stomach.
What was she watching? So I
don't
meant to
know.
go back and freeze frame because it almost looks like she was watching a video game, which is really funny if that's what's on the screen because I don't see any controllers. But it's yeah, I thought that too. I was like, she's laying on the floor, looks like a little kid, and that's one of those things. So it's like you can tell it's like they were trying to figure out what to do with her throughout the movie, because I think if you were doing this movie over and like had that character a little more flesh, there's no way like she wouldn't have been even positioned like that in a scene.
Oh, well, in just a few scenes later, Vin Diesel, they clearly show him open his hand so he can grab as much of her ass as possible to lift her up. And then he straight up motorboats her, which I don't think I've ever seen in a mainstream movie.
So let's talk about that for a second. A lot of, not sex, but a lot of, sensuality, and a lot of fucks in this movie dropped for a PG-13, which I don't know if that changed at some point.
I only recall of the one.
Fuck. Oh, there's a few. There's a
The
fuck
only
you,
one
Brian.
the only one I recall is Ja
Ja
Rule.
Rule. Oh no, there's a handful throughout, and that's what because I made a note of it because I was like, that's weird. Like, was that just a little more loose in 2001 in terms of the ratings board? Which, I mean, I wouldn't shock me. It's like it's not something that would surprise me because I think, but there's an interesting special feature on the DVD about that final heist scene, and some of like the biggest thing it sounded like that came down to like whether they got an R or PG-13 was violence, and that scene was a sticking point in one of the notes that so I guess the way that they do it, they like provide feedback but don't tell you like, oh, you should make this scene less violent, but like they'll just give you like general feedback to kind of that isn't particularly helpful in terms of if you're trying to nail down which scenes are really throwing up red flags to the ratings board. But that was one, I guess, that they trimmed out a lot of blood, like scenes where it was like lingering on his arm and stuff, and it was interesting. It was an interesting thing to watch, just they're like editing in real time, like and explaining like, we're doing this because we want this movie to have a PG-13 rating so teenagers can come and watch it. It's hard to imagine this movie as an R-rated movie. Like if it was bloodier, I guess that would be kind of, I mean, I don't think this movie, like I don't think like the sensuality, I don't think any of those scenes would have been like, you would have seen anybody's,
No.
dicks hanging out or anything. So
Out of those snakeskin pants.
but I think it's I think it's well done. I mean, I think the tone, it's a good hang. It's just a really good hang of a movie. We have to talk about Ja Rule. We've brought him up a few times, but we haven't.
I forgot he was in this movie.
He's arguably
He is
the
the
biggest
most
person in
2001 thing about this film.
Yes, it definitely is.
So good.
I was talking some with Slade about this last night because Slade's a big, I'm not a big hip hop rap person. I'm very much like the most casual listener possible. Slade, you can give the people your spiel about your affection for the genre.
Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite genre. I grew up on it. I listen to literally every genre. I love music in general, but I really dive into breaking down lyrics and the creativity behind hip hop and the different styles and everything. And growing up around this time, Ja Rule was definitely on my radar as like somebody that I really enjoyed listening to. He ended up getting into a big beef with 50 Cent that kind of crushed his career, and he went to jail and all of that. And this is really, but at the peak of his time. And Murder Inc. at this time is rolling, and with between him and Ashanti and Lloyd, 2001 is just a massive year for Irv Gotti and everything going on for New York rap at this time. And to put Ja Rule in this, this was a big year for hip hop in general in movies. I mean, you have Ja Rule in this. You've got DMX in a movie. You've got Dr. Dre in multiple movies. Snoop Dogg's in multiple movies. Eminem, Tyrese, who's an R&B singer. Like, there's just so much hip hop, and I think that this time frame is where hip hop really starts to grow on a broader spectrum than just local radio.
Do you have any history, Allison, with hip hop? Were you bopping Ja Rule?
I mean, I would say I'm a casual listener as well. There's some I like, some I don't care for. You did leave out Ja Rule's perhaps most well-known noun for the catastrophe that was Firefest.
Oh no!
Yeah.
He was involved with that.
He was like a with what was the dude? I can't remember his name.
He was
the guy.
basically like supposed to be a headliner, but also like helping run and attract the talent, and was like influencer for the whole thing. Like put his stamp of approval on it, and it bit him right in the ass. Yeah.
Yeah, it sure did.
So, going back to Ja Rule, like I'll never forget the first time. The first big song that he had with him was "Put It On Me," and which is the "What Would I Be Without You?" And I loved that song. My sister loved that song. It would come on the radio, and my mom was like, "You can't even understand what he's saying. Turn that crap off," And so, just fun nostalgia stuff like that.
There's so many of those people from that era that I couldn't have told you what they sang, but I heard their songs, right? Like, and I was listening to some of this from the Pain Is Love album that came out in this year, 2001. And it's probably his biggest album based on, I mean, just like awards, attention, and sales and everything. And it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I know that song. But I couldn't, before I had done that research, I couldn't have told you that was Ja Rule. Like, it's like, that's my disconnect right there, right, in action. But man, he was, I mean, it really was arguably the biggest celebrity in this movie. Like he was, I mean, I don't even know that it's arguable. Like he was the headliner, and he's a bit player in the movie. And so, and talking about his decision making, he decided not to come back for this movie, or for the sequel. He turned it down to focus on his rap career, which at the time is kind of an understandable decision because he was really blowing up. And now, and he's talked since then about not having regrets about that decision because obviously the franchise went on, and it opened up the door for Ludacris to come in and be a part of the franchise. And he's continued on into every sequel almost.
That was my question though. Was he going to be Ludacris's role, or was he going to be Tyrese's role? Because like that, it could have been either way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he probably would have been. I don't know. I mean, it probably would have depended on if he'd come back. I think if you had Paul Walker, obviously he comes back for the first sequel, and then Tyrese steps in. But if you have Ja Rule come back in, and he's this big, I mean, I would imagine he would have been the co-headliner. They would have been Edwin, back with Brian, and getting the gang back together, kind of more of a little vibe type. It probably would have changed the movie quite a bit. And maybe there's a part for Ludacris still, or maybe not. Maybe he ends up, not being involved with the franchise at all, or Tyrese, either one. So it's an interesting closing doors moment there.
Also, what kind of name is Edwin? I thought that was a strange choice. But
yeah. Yeah.
Everyone else has such like cool names. Edwin.
Poor Edwin missed out on his menage a trois.
Yeah.
No, Monica. That's probably the line when I was doing some research and watching videos and stuff about this movie. Like that's like the first YouTube comment on any scene, like anything you're watching. Like it doesn't even have to be that scene. Like it's iconic. Just thinking about quotes and going back to the party quote. I think there's probably the only other thing that I want to make sure we touch on is the Corona. Like you can have any beer you want as long as it's a Corona. And
Yeah.
my initial thought was like that totally was product placement. It wasn't, at least as far as from what I've read and listened in interviews, they just did that as sort of as part of the just character, and it carried on. They've never paid for any product placement at all and throughout the franchise, which is kind of wild.
That is wild.
I like the touch of Brian like wiping
Wiping
guess,
Vince's.
the spit off of the before he drinks it. But yeah, he hands it to him and says that line, and you would expect the bottle to turn and to see a Corona logo, but it doesn't. So that's why I'd wondered if it was product. I was like, if that was product placement, they would have made him turn the bottle so you could see the logo.
That's a good point.
I think that it became Corona just because of California. I think it was a California thing. But can we go to where Jordana Brewster's character is like, I don't date my brother's friends, and then Vince comes in, he's like, wash my car while you're at it, you cutie. And then she's like, oh, what's that Cuban restaurant you wanted to take me to? Oh, you could take me there? That was so dirty. Like, he had every right to be pissed off at that point.
Make your own goddamn popcorn.
Punches the damn microwave and just walks out.
Yeah, let's talk about this dude who thinks he's so slick he can take this pretty sister of his best friend out, and he can't operate a damn microwave. Like, meanwhile, he's going to go hijack a truck later, but he can't turn on a microwave. No wonder he was dangling off the side of that damn thing.
Plays a mean guitar, though.
Music's great. I mean, I think the soundtrack's fantastic. I mean, tons of good, I know you're a big
Needle
Woodstock
drops
guy.
everywhere.
Yep. Rolling, 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 rolling. I love that scene, just the car scene. I mean, it's real subtle stuff. Like, it just feels right, like with all those the songs kind of coming in and out. It just feels really, that whole thing is really put together really well for a scene that big,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is almost like the perfect blend of being an action movie mixed with like a music video. Like, it's just fun. It's not too much of either or, but you definitely get hints of both.
Yeah, it definitely has music video aesthetic to it.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't remember reading this, but it wouldn't surprise me if Cohen had been involved with music video direction at some point, because it does have that kind of gleam on it.
Yeah, glossy sheen.
And the last thing, the stinger. Did you guys watch the final credits, right? Like
Yeah.
Oh my-
Is
Oh my
this
God, I
the
didn't.
first? Oh,
Shit.
I was gonna say, is this the first like post-credit scene movie you ever remember? Because for me, it is. Like, I remember somebody like going to school. You're talking about the movie, and they're like, "Yo, did you know? Like at the end of the movie, Dom's in Mexico," and you're like, "Get out of here!" No, after the credits, you're like, "Yeah, okay, bullshit." And then you go back and watch it, and for you, Allison, since you haven't seen it, it's just Dom driving a souped-up Camaro, I believe, an old like 1980s Camaro in Mexico, and it's the same. I live my life a quarter mile at a time. Quote. Run over that, and he's kind of driving on Mexican streets and then on the beach, and that's really all it is. But it just kind of gives you an extra chapter of, okay, he made it safe to Mexico where he wants to be, but it looks like he's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like a little closure scene for Dom after kind of. He escaped. He got out. That's what it's trying to tell you. And it's interesting though, because for me it is the first one I remember seeing. I mean, I don't know if it was. I doubt it was the first one made, but it was definitely the first one I remember watching. Because I don't remember because I do remember seeing this in theaters with my parents, but I don't remember if we stuck around and watched it then, or if it was something I saw later, like on DVD or something. But it was interesting because. If you think about this movie, if it hadn't spawned a franchise, I think it puts you in a place where you feel really kind of good about where everybody is at the end of the movie. Brian, you're left to, I guess, wonder if, he gets his due for letting a criminal go, but he's also got a plenty of plausible deniability, I think, in terms of saying that happened or didn't. And I also believe that for Dom, it's he's even though he is, I guess, the bad guy in this movie, he's also the at the end of the day, he's also probably the character you're rooting for the most by the end. So
He's really an anti-hero. I mean, I think Johnny Tran's supposed to be the villain, but I mean, I don't feel like that. I mean, I guess they're tied to the plot, but it's just like the secondary thing, and it's really about Dom,
Yeah, I think the ultimate villain's the asshole truck driver with the shotgun. Let's be real.
who you don't even ever see his face. It's an interesting choice to frame it that way.
Yeah,
I love those close-ups of the bullets.
yeah. So many great just shots, action sequence wise. Like it really is fun to watch aesthetically. But I'm curious to know like who made the decision and why they made the decision to put that at the end of the credits and how that came about instead of just making it part of the film. I don't know. It was just an interesting thing because definitely in 2001 that was not common. Like nowadays you go to a movie, every time you see a movie you wonder, okay, is there a credit thing, and you're going to either Google it or you're going to sit around and wait. But like, how did that come about would be something that like I would always be interested to find out.
I wonder if Point Break has one.
I mean,
Dude.
what would be the first post credit? The earliest one I can think of is Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I just Googled it. The first ever post-credit scene was in the 1966 James Bond parody, The Silencers. It was a joke to mimic the traditional James Bond will return title card by showing Dean Martin with a scantily clad woman after the credits.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but then it says, the post-credit scenes were later popularized decades later by comedies like The Muppets movie in 1979, and then followed by Ferris Bueller's Day Off in 1986. So that's, seems to track that pretty much The Muppets and Ferris Bueller were really kind of the first big ones, I guess.
You can find anything on the web.
That's like the perfect bow tie to this right here. Way to wrap it up, Allison. You're a genius.
All right, we ain't beating that, so let's go on to our bonus feature. Today, so for listeners, this is our first episode, and we didn't really explain this in the draft, so I'm going to explain it now. Previous segments are pretty self-explanatory. I think it's obviously easy to understand what we're doing here in terms of talking about the movie. But in every episode, we're going to have a segment called Special Features, Bonus Features. Honestly, it might change in terms of whoever's hosting and what we end up saying in the moment. It doesn't matter. It all means the same thing. Where we will talk about something that it might relate directly to the movie. It might be more of a high-minded relation to the movie, but something that was timely in 2001 that we can look back on and just sort of reminisce about and see how we feel about that thing now and maybe how it's changed since then. And today we're going to talk about VCRs/VHS tapes because those play an incredibly it's the only really element of the movie I think that's dated is the fact that this whole plot hinges on people stealing VCR TV combos at the very jump. So with that, here's some just going to give you some background about the VCR and home media in general, because at the start of this decade or the start of the century, DVD obviously was getting popular. It was a format, it was developed in 1995, but it kind of didn't really start catching on until about 99, 2000. And really about 2001, it was starting to really make a lot of inroads. That year, Blockbuster later in the year in 2001 started giving up space of its VHSs in terms of what it rented out, and to make more room for DVDs because they were starting to get a lot more demand for DVDs. And then by the time, January 2001, VHS sales accounted for 67% of all home video sales to consumers. By January of the next year, that flipped around. It was 33% VHS, 67% for DVDs. So that's how quickly, once DVD started to make inroads, it really started to take the bite out of VHS's popularity. But VHS's, at the time this movie was made, which would have been, they produced, filmed, and everything in 2000, were still incredibly popular. Even in 2001, rental revenues were high, $7.02 billion, which is not that far off from what the box office was last year in total revenue at the U.S. box office, which is kind of crazy when you say that out loud. And by the end of the year 2001, 96 million households in the U.S. owned a VCR. I didn't look up what the population in the U.S. would have been, but it would. I mean, it would have still been around 300 million. So that's like 1/3 of every 1 out of 3 homes had a VCR, which seems almost small to me. It's weird because I think of these things as like ubiquitous, right? Like it seems like everybody would own something, but that's still just 1/3 of the population. So it's interesting that, I think about this stuff so much in media, like how pervasive things are, and yet that's still, that's still not even half of the country. It's kind of interesting when you look at it that way, at least to me.
I have a story that I feel like I need to tell about my relationship with VCRs and DVDs.
Please do.
Yes. So, even to this day now, I still fall asleep with the TV on. 9 times out of 10, it's with a movie on. Growing up as a kid, my favorite movie when I was, 5, 6 years old was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original live action, 1988 or 89 film. And so I would watch it in the living room every night and fall asleep to it. But I would watch it 3, 4 times a night before I would fall asleep. I couldn't touch the VCR, was not allowed to touch it because I would break the VCR. So I would walk into my parents' room, 2, 3, 4 times a night, knock on the door and tell mom, hey, Ninja Turtles, I need you to rewind it.
Oh, God.
This went on every night. And my mother, God rest her soul, had finally had enough one night. So probably about the 3rd or 4th time I knock on her door, she walks out and she goes, that's it. I've had it. No more Ninja Turtles. She rips the tape out of the VHS, snapped it in half, and threw it away. And I cried my eyes out. I mean, bawled my eyes out. I never got to watch Ninja Turtles on VHS ever again. But when I started my DVD collection, the first DVD I bought was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I got even.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Traumatized.
Well, I'm, a good 10 or so years older than you all, but I've always been, as I said in the last episode, I'm a communications professional. That's just how we'll put it. But I've always been really interested in video editing. So I did a lot of that in high school. We had basically the equivalent of like an AV club sort of thing. It was called TSA, Technology Student Association. But like back in those days, it was 2 VCRs with an editing board, and like the syncing of like you got to press play and record at the same time, and pausing and using the editing board to do transitions, and it would take forever to edit anything. And it just like blows my mind how quickly you can use like CapCut on your phone now and just like whip something up in less than 10 minutes. And it was so time consuming. And then if you like fucked up something, you had to like rewind and very carefully try to get back to the exact frame where you started to try to make it seamless.
How about the fact that at this time you can call what's called Geek Squad at Best Buy and have them literally install your VHS or DVD player for you and tell you how to do it? Like, it's crazy. Crazy.
I also remember the first DVD I ever watched was The Matrix, because I came home from college and my parents had bought a DVD player and I was like, what is this? Oh my God. And we went to, it was Movie Warehouse, not Blockbuster, and rented The Matrix.
I remember
Nice.
Movie Warehouse, man. We had, so we growing up had just like a local video store where we would rent VHSs and things, and it was, I can't remember the name of it. It was just like a little, like a mom and pop, deal in where I'm from. But Movie Warehouse, there was one of those in Huntington, West Virginia, which is, about an hour away from where I grew up. And they went out of business it was probably 2010, 2011, something like that. They started all going bankrupt and out of business. So at the time it sucked, because like you're, in my head, I'm like, oh, all this stuff is going away. And it's kind of ebbed and flowed since then. But you get a lot of movies, like you get a lot of discounts. So I mean, I went in and ransacked, and you would collect, just buy just things I'd never watched, still haven't watched. There are movies I bought from the Movie Warehouse that are sitting out in my shed that I've still never watched. But it's like I got them for $0.25. Who gives a shit, So. But the main thing, the reason I want to bring that up is I also bought a huge double-sided shelf from Movie Warehouse for like probably $25, and this was like one of the display shelves where they would put out the DVDs and VHSs and things. And I mean, it was awesome. I used it in college. You've seen it, Slay. You know what I'm talking about. I'll share a picture with the audience when we put this episode out. And it was awesome. I mean, it was I loved it so much, but it was heavy as fuck. And it moved. We moved it once from when we left our apartment to a house we rented later in Lexington. And oh my God, it was like, it just got obnoxious. It's something I wish I still had now, but it would still be obnoxious if I had it. I don't know where it would live, but it was so cool. But yeah, seriously, we put that out. So I decided we're getting rid of it. Me and a buddy moved it out onto the curb, and I shit you not, we're walking up the driveway, and somebody comes by in a truck and puts it in their truck before we even get back in the house. It was incredible. That's incredible.
Awesome. That's awesome. First DVD I ever saw was the James Cameron Aliens, followed by Terminator 2. It was like a double feature of James Cameron's. I remember watching that at my mom's best friend's house. She had surround sound DVD player, big screen TV that probably weighed 300 pounds because, they weren't like what they were then. They were huge boxes. But that was the first DVD I ever watched. Josh, what was yours?
My DVD is interesting. It might have been this. I know for sure that we had this on DVD. It was definitely among the first DVDs we owned. I was the one driving. I don't know why, but I was the one sort of driving we need to get a DVD player. We need to get the DVD, just various things. I know we had The Matrix, but we wouldn't have had them. Like, it wouldn't have been like I think The Matrix, like the movie came out in 99, I believe. So the DVD probably came out in 99 or 2000, but we didn't have it then. I would, this might have been my first DVD. Like, it was definitely close enough. I know for sure we had it. For me, the one I remember the most though, as far as like opening as a gift or something, was the first season of The Simpsons. It was something that a cousin who's no longer with us, who he would like. This was at a time where you would burn episodes of, like, they weren't DVD-Rs, they were CDRs. But you could put them in a computer and somehow play them still. And he would burn, he gave me 3 or 4 discs with burned episodes of The Simpsons on. That was my introduction to The Simpsons, was watching bootleg CDRs that my cousin somehow downloaded from the internet. And he, but so that when those DVDs started coming out, that first, I remember the Christmas, opening up and getting that first season of The Simpsons. And that was, so it wasn't the first one I watched, but that was definitely my first, really, really strong core memory of a gift, like a DVD related gift.
Nice.
So I know that, streaming and owning things digitally is kind of the thing now, but it's interesting that, I guess Blu-ray sort of took the place of DVDs to some extent, but I've got a Blu-ray DVD player and I can still, they're still around, and it's still a really good format, which for 25 plus years later, I feel is pretty impressive.
They're still really expensive. A DVD player is cheap, but Blu-ray player is the cheapest that I can find. My Blu-ray player that plays both Blu-ray and DVDs crapped out on me a couple months back, and I haven't really needed to buy one. And now I'm okay, some of this stuff I want to watch on DVD or Blu-ray again, and definitely check out the special features and see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, which I'm sure you can find online. But I don't know, something about putting in the physical media, right? And I've been looking. I'm gonna end up having to go to a pawn shop because Best Buy, the cheapest they have is $85-$90. Same thing with Walmart, and I'm man, Blu-ray players are that expensive still? I mean, you could walk. I remember at this time, you could get a DVD player for $30. When, after they'd been out for so long, I just kind of figured Blu-ray players would kind of fall in line with that. But
I tell you something you should try is go see if you can find something at Goodwill. I've found, I see them all the time around here. The thing is, you might need a remote. You might have to buy a universal remote or something. That would be the thing that you'd have to go out of your way to kind of hook up with it. But you might be able to find something that works pretty well. The thing about Blu-ray is interesting, because that's a big talking point. And people that are really into this stuff, they get hung up on why are these plebes that why do they, because like DVD's still like out. I mean, like the whole market has shrunk, right? Like it's nowhere near what it was in the 2000s, you know, DVD sales, home media sales. But DVD still typically outpaces Blu-rays and 4K. Like 4Ks are like a sliver of the market, and then Blu-rays are decent chunk, but DVDs largely still command most of the sales in the home media market. And I think it's because of that. I mean, like it was so affordable for a long time, and you can even like you could probably go find just a straight DVD player at like a Goodwill or something for like $5. You know, like if you just need a DVD, you know, to play DVDs. So it's something that just had this monster insurgence into people's homes. And you know, I didn't look up the numbers on what DVDs ended up doing, but you know, that's what it took to replace VHS, though, because VHS had, you know, a pretty long life in this. It was kind of the first one, you know, like because Laserdisc were, you know, big,
Way too big, and too big.
Like and Betamax was kind of a you know, more of a geeky technology at the time, and so VHS sort of, in its moment, had a really long life, and then DVD just kind of like is trampled on that, you know, because we would be talking about VHS in that respect if not for DVDs, because I mean, and it's really just about the ease of use to some degrees, because the DVD picture quality is pretty good, but it's not that much better than a VHS, really. Like in a lot of instances, it's still standard definition. A lot of it depends on how the transfer for the tape was, but it's fun. It's interesting though. It's also been interesting, like to just look back, and you know, now we're in this moment where VHS is sort of, you know, I think it's this retro technology in a way that I'm not sure. I don't know how DVD will ever get that, because it's never went away, right? Like it's sort of always kind of lingered in the background. Whereas VHS, now you have people make custom art VHSs and custom tapes, and I see people that make like art pieces out of old VHS tapes with lights in them and cool things like that. And it's funny how technology persists in a way. I guess, I mean, I guess the way I put it is, I think VHSs or VCRs, all of that stuff will probably have a life closer to records in a way, like in terms of I mean, it's weird, right? Because I think records people have this the sound is something that, you know, I don't know, like the aesthetic of a VHS isn't something I'm particularly nostalgic for, but I also understand it. Like it's a unique thing. And for me, my biggest relationship with VHS was, you know, I had things growing up, but it was, you know, recording things. That was my biggest relationship was with VHS, was recording things.
Yeah, records look cool. VHS tapes do not look cool. You know.
You don't like black bricks just laying around your home? Alex?
Oh, the orange Nickelodeon ones kick ass.
Those were cool. Those were really cool.
And then if like somehow the tape got pulled out, or like, you know, the VCR would like eat the tape, and you'd have to try to like carefully like wind it back in and try not to crinkle it too much.
It's kind
or
of
if your
amazing.
mother just snapped it in half. You know?
Your mom just snapped it in half in the middle of the night.
So, tell us, like, did you try to put the broken pieces in the VCR?
I just cried. I just went back on the couch and cried. I mean, you can't, like, how am I going to, you know, what am I going to do with that? I'm pretty sure she, like, snapped it and pulled, like, all of the film out. I mean, it was rough. It was a bad night in the Slattery household.
So what replaced Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles after the next night when you had to go to sleep?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't remember.
He just cried himself to sleep.
Yeah,
until he got a DVD player.
You know, I was 10. I had to learn how to self-soothe at that time. You know, they put the passy out. But no, the coolest part about that whole thing, and it kind of came full circle a few years back, was at Comic-Con. I met Kevin Eastman, who, you know, obviously made the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and just got the news this week that they're not making the Last Ronin series, which breaks my heart. I don't even want to talk about that, but I got to tell him about, you know, my experience with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and how my mother ripped the tape and all that, and he thought that was like the coolest thing. So that was cool to kind of get to share that moment with him.
And then he pulled a VHS out of his pocket and gave it to you.
I did have him sign my comic. That's, you know, so.
Cool. Anything else about VHSs, DVDs? Anything we'd like to? Any core memories that have unlocked during this conversation?
No, I used to record Do you remember the MTV show 120 Minutes?
No.
Did y'all ever watch it?
We
So
were
it came
we
on.
were probably too young.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ, that's right. Okay. History lesson, children.
Yeah.
So 120 Minutes was a show that ran on MTV. It was like Sunday nights at midnight, and it was like basically when they would play alternative music videos. So not kind of the standard stuff that was on the radio, but more interesting indie artists and stuff. And I had to go to school. I couldn't stay up and watch it, but like I would, set the VCR to record. It was a 2-hour show, 120 minutes, and record it every night. And then I used to keep the tapes, and I would literally go through and watch them, and then log what all the music videos were. I wanted to be a music video director when I was in high school, so this was like I'm like doing research and like studying the craft of making music videos, and
Yeah, I wanted to be
that's
a
a
VJ.
core VHS memory for me.
I wanted to be a VJ, TRL, Carson Daly. I wanted to do the spring break stuff like that. Yeah, so that's awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, VHS recording. That's a unique thing. I never did the DVR thing. I missed that window. But the VHS stuff was. I've spent so many tapes and so much time trying to make sure the recording, the clock, and then you're checking for daylight savings time and all that nonsense. It was a frustrating but a simpler time. So we're at the end of our episode. At the end of every episode, we plan on just kind of closing with some last minute thoughts about the movie, and mostly less about the movie and more about how much it matters. And how much did it matter in 2001? Did it matter in 2001, and does it matter more now, or vice versa? And I don't want to color the conversation necessarily, but I think it's impossible to say that this movie doesn't matter in the year 2025 when we've had 9 sequels and a spin-off or 2, and whether we like that or not is another conversation, I guess, but I think its impact is pretty apparent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it probably matters more now than it did then. I mean, who would have thought that this movie would spawn that franchise? One of the biggest and even, later on, and like I said, I haven't watched like the later movies, but a lot of them have pretty good reviews from what I've been told. Like they're like well-crafted action movies, so
it is interesting, right? The path that this franchise takes is unlike. I don't know that it has a comparison off the top of my head, because the direct sequel, Too Fast, Too Furious, to this movie, it focuses on Brian and the character who played by Tyrese, and then from there it just kind of spins off into a completely, almost to a large degree, a spin-off to some.
Yeah, Lucas Black in Japan.
It goes to the country of origin for all the the streetcar stuff. It's really cool in that sense, but it's like very much a unique outlier in the core series. But then there's like a stinger on that, right, Slade? Am I remembering right? Like there's like a end credit scene or the last scene or something where like Dom is it's like the first time Dom's been back since the stinger on the first movie.
Yep. Yeah. I mean it pivots to Tokyo Drift and all of that, and at the end of the movie, after the credits, Dom rolls up and they're teasing it, hey, somebody wants to race the new Drift King and yada yada yada, and Dom rolls up and you find out that Dom was a friend of Hans, who's the kind of the guy who takes Lucas Black's character under his wing and dies in the film and all of that, but all of these movies are really street racer based for the most part, with some detective stuff in them in 1 and 2. But the third one doesn't really have police presence, right? And then the fourth one gives you a reason to bring Dom back to the States and put a lot of the original cast together, which revolves around Letty's death. And then after that, when you get to 5 and you go through the rest of these movies,
5
it
is
becomes
the best movie.
5 is by far the best movie. But it becomes Ocean's 11 with cars. I mean, it's a heist film. It's it's like Now You See Me with fucking cars. I don't know. It's just
And they
It's,
do some crazy stuff. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
5, like the most
But
iconic
the safe
scene
is
in 5.
amazing.
They filmed it was all still like practical. They
Practical.
took a safe through the streets of like Brazil, I think.
Not a safe,
And,
it's a
and
full vault.
yeah, like a bank vault. They drag it with a
With
car.
2 Dodge
and
Chargers and just
and they're wrecking shit in the street, like real cars. Like
Allison, I will flat out tell you, you don't need to watch 2, 3, 4. Just watch Fast 5. You will love it. And
That's the
we can
first one with
if
The
you
Rock.
if you have questions, we can fill you in, but you just
You
need
won't
to
have
watch
questions.
that one. But you just need to watch it. The action sequences are just that whole last 30 minutes with them just tearing up Rio with a vault tied to the back of 2 cars with cables is just amazing.
At some
yeah,
point,
no.
they do I don't know if it's 6 or 7. 7's the last one I saw. That they jump cars from like buildings
Into a building
to
in
building.
Dubai,
and,
yeah.
and it's digital. Like the effect is partly digital, but they did build like something to like simulate that still.
to launch it and destroy. And
It's like crazy.
well, and then of course, I think the last Fast and the Furious movie, they send Ludacris and Tyrese to space, and they come back through the atmosphere without blowing up. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah. So going back to my views on if this movie matters, like you said, yeah, it absolutely matters. Just for the simple fact that I think it started to really set the tone for a summer blockbuster. I think this is one of the first really big films that did great in theaters, but did even better at home. It was one of those movies that after you watched it once, when it came back out, you went and rented it or you went and bought it, and people just would keep watching it. It had so much replayability.
It briefly had the record for the most DVDs sold in a single day. I forgot to include that in our notes, but it was like 2.1 million or something. I mean, it was like, and it was, I don't remember how long it held that record. And the current record holder, for anyone who's interested, I mean, and it will forever be the record holder, is Finding Nemo, which came out a couple of years later.
Honestly, I would have. Well, I guess Titanic came out really before DVDs took.
Titanic
off,
was a dual VHS.
But it wouldn't have surprised me if, like, when it came out on DVD, if all the women of a certain age went out and purchased it.
But yeah, as far as pop culture goes, I mean, based off of Pitch Black, based off of Triple X, like if it wasn't for this movie and this franchise, I mean, he had the pacifier, but Vin Diesel doesn't really get established.
We wouldn't
this
be
movie
talking
doesn't,
about him.
yes,
We wouldn't be talking about him.
he would just be a guy. He was in a couple action movies, but nothing big. And I think going back, like it has a massive impact on just Paul Walker and his death, and he died in a fiery crash in a very fast Porsche. And the impact that his death had not only on just people that were fans of his or just pop culture in general, and then the effect it had on the movies that happened after that, and even the cast and the close-knit group that they all were together. And you've got Universal Studios has a ride based off of this. They have things dedicated to Fast and Furious. There's just a lot. So there's just no way you can say this film doesn't matter, even if it is a stupid popcorn movie.
Yeah, we hadn't talked about Paul Walker's death yet, but I think this is a good place to do it because it affected the 7th movie. They were filming that movie. He'd filmed about half the movie before that happened, and I think obviously that movie is much different if he's still with us, and that would be preferable. But that movie is a very they did that in. I don't know if there's a better instance of a actor dying mid filming and a movie being executed better than that in terms of how they just handled his death on screen and the song. I mean the
yeah.
See You Again. I mean that song was massive outside of the movie, but it was written for the movie, and I mean just that alone. I mean just the power, the power, and then yeah, the how the cast and the whole theme of the series becoming things that were laid out in this first movie, the family thing. I mean, because a lot of that goes away for a minute until like really Fast Five. Like really, it gets brought back, really solidified in Fast Five. So they go 3 other movies before they circle back. Really, I mean, you really could go from the first movie. There's things that happen in Fast Four that matter, I guess, in terms of the continuity. But you really can almost jump from the first one to 5 and not miss out on a whole lot in terms of the structure, because that's where like the themes they circle back to the family stuff that's established here as like the core element that kind of keeps the series intact.
Yeah, and I don't know how you can watch that last sequence of, you know, them driving separate ways and that music playing and not get teary-eyed or cold chills or something. It's just, you know, Paul Walker dying was like, for us, was a lot like James Dean dying for my grandmother, you know, and that whole, like, just the shock of it, and holy crap, you know, like, how does that happen? And you know, rumor goes around, oh, Paul Walker died in a car crash, and you're like, yeah, whatever, you know, Fast and Furious, yeah, okay, poetic justice, like, that can't be real. And then when it finally hits you that it's real, and you're just like, what? You know, it's one of the most shocking deaths, I think, of my lifetime, of any celebrity. I mean, you have a lot of things that come up that are shocking, but that one just blew me away. It was the first one that was like, holy shit.
Well, on that happy note,
sorry, I didn't mean to Debbie Downer.
No, I mean, it is important. I mean, it's something that, you know, I think about that a lot. Like, I mean, just how we relate to people and on screen, and obviously we're all of an age, or at least I am. I don't know. I think about death a lot more than I used to. Just even though, I mean, but we're not old, but like we're, you know, it's our mortality is starting to become more apparent, and you know, so it's sad, it gets sadder. I don't know. I think we're starting to hit that point where I think more of our hero, you know, quote unquote heroes. I don't like to say the word heroes necessarily, but people we've followed and grew up with in terms of just celebrities are going to start, you know, dying, and I think that's a weird thing just in our society. Like, and so it's even harder when it's like someone so young that it's just through an accident or something. I think that kind of really even makes it worse.
The one thing I wanted to mention, this this is kind of not after that finishing. This is kind of a little bit of a tone shift.
We need an uplifting moment, Allison.
But I was thinking about how this movie took off when I think it was 99 that Gone in 60 Seconds came out.
Ah, with Nicolas Cage.
And I mean, not that they're similar movies, kind of similar tone. It's a car heist, and you know, it's just interesting that like that movie kind of went nowhere, and this one just spawned.
Oh, that movie went far, and that movie went far in my mind, because that was like the first time I fell in love with Angelina Jolie.
Angelina Jolie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, to this day, I still like would kill to have a 1967 Shelby Mustang GT 500 that's silver, and I would name her Eleanor. You know, but yeah, I think because Gone in 60 Seconds was a remake, and there was no plans for a sequel, and Nicolas Cage at that time had never done a sequel and would never do a sequel until National Treasure came knocking. And that might be part of it too. But, yeah, I mean, this is a remake too, if you count it as Point Break, but
Ursa, and the title. It's funny. I read a little bit about that Fast and Furious from the Roger Corman. It's like nothing. I mean, it's obviously a much different movie, but it is just funny. Like, it's, I don't know. I kind of want to watch it now just to see how, you know, inspired this might have been by that even. Well, thank you, listeners, for joining us in this heist. I hope you enjoy the VCR TV combos. I hope the decks work. It's amazing that VCR still even work in the year 2025, because they haven't been made. I was reading, I think the last manufacturer stopped making them in like 2014 or 2016 or something. So
my 1989 original Nintendo still works.
That's impressive.
damn.
I get it every once in a while. I just have to get it out and play it.
What's your go-to game?
Super Mario 3.
Oh yeah, with the
Although
with those
I have a
wings
Nintendo Switch
and the
now,
tail.
and you can get like the old games on it, but I was like, there's something about like having that shitty controller, and you have to sit real close to the screen, and yeah.
So eventually, we'll have places that tell you to go in terms of social accounts and whatnot. Those haven't been created at the time of recording, but I'll make sure that you guys can follow us. We'll probably be on Instagram. My guess is we're going to do Instagram. Probably just have a Facebook page by default, and I don't know, maybe.
Do we really want to allow the OnlyFan bots to be in our comments on Twitter?
Oh, we
or
will
X or
open an
whatever you wanna call it?
OnlyFans. No, but we will open an OnlyFans for the show.
Sure.
If you're willing to pay for it, we'll
Side
figure out.
boob?
Do I need to show my feet?
Oh
Is that a
man, we
That's
could
crazy.
We could rake it in. But
That's how
seriously-
she's winning the poll. The feet pics.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, listeners. So we haven't decided yet on our poll, but we will of like who won the draft. But chime in. It's something we've sort of scheduled things out. We sort of have a pretty good schedule of how we want to approach things. So that slot is pretty deep in the year. So I think if you want to chime in and let us know who maybe you feel like had the best draft, that's certainly something we'd love to hear from you. Otherwise,
Next week.
yeah, we have next week. Allison is in charge of the next movie. It is one of the movies she drafted. It's about an overconfident white man who's in over his head. That's my descriptor of it. Do you want to tell the people a little bit about your movie, Allison?
Next week I will be doing Zoolander.
Hey.
Yes. And we'll be looking at the world of high fashion through Ben Stiller's eyes.
So many cameos in this movie. Holy
Right?
shit.
No, I remember, I knew there were a lot, but then when I was going through, I was making notes. I'm like, oh my God, everyone. Like Jennifer Coolidge is in a cameo in the beginning. You don't even know it's her because she's in shadow.
How about Vince Vaughn with not a single line?
Vince Vaughn, he doesn't even speak. Yes.
Crazy. Crazy.
We'll talk about it next week. Yeah, but it was crazy. No, I'm excited.
Can't wait for that. We hope you'll join us. And
That was my blue
in the meantime, we've got some VCRs to hawk. We'll see you later.